Hey, Nico from Greenspace. We're going to do another plot and nursery tour. We've had another bit of rain actually since the last one, just after the American election. We had a good downpour of about just over an inch actually. So that's kicked some things into growth. And let's go have a look at what there is. One of the quintessential early flowering plants is the fireball lily, Scadoxus multiflorus, subspecies multiflorus. We only have the one species here in Zambia that we know of as of yet. Maybe we'll hopefully come across some more. But just fantastic putting up these round inflorescences very early on. So literally just before the rain, there wasn't any sign of them. But then basically the day of the rain, they started pushing up, and now, what, 5 days later, they are in full flower. Well, at least this collection. There is another collection that I have, the indigenous one that occurs on the farm naturally. That actually is a slightly later flowering one, but this is just such a fantastic clump here. And we've got, these guys spread around the farm in different places. Here we've got a early flowering Eulophia orchid. This is Eulophia guineensis, and it has actually quite large flowers for some of the earlier ones. Very, very lovely, and usually kind of a plant of the woodland shade, sometimes actually darker shade, but they seem to thrive underneath this Dichrostachys cinerea that I've got them here under. So we got another clump of it just here, doing very, very well. Occasionally I will get natural seed set on these, so there's obviously the pollinator around, but to help it along sometimes I will hand pollinate these myself. And I am trying to grow these from seed with some success at the moment, but hopefully much, much more in due course of time. It's just such a lovely early flowering orchid. This is an interesting member of the Apocynaceae family. This is Raphionacme welwitschii. Grows from this fantastic, usually subterranean tuber, but I've exposed them for the interest of that. But then it puts out these kind of long, almost meter-long stems with these green and maroon flowers. This is not a climbing plant, even though it looks like it. The stems only get to about 1 meter long, and then that's it for growing. But they would normally grow near shrubs where they'd get a bit more support. But in this case, I don't have anything close to it, so it just kind of hangs over as it is doing right there. And then just in behind it, we've got another early flowering Eulophia. This is Eulophia fridericii. Very similar in appearance to Eulophia gonii, only slightly smaller flowers, and the coloring is different. Whereas with gonii, it is purple and pink. These guys are more kind of yellow with then reddish kind of veining on them. But it's flowered later than the gonii. The gonii is already finished, and now they've actually set some seed. So you can just see here that there's a seed pod developing on this gonii here, and then the flowers are just basically finishing up. But they've had a good long run, almost 3 weeks or so of flowers on them. So it's been quite nice to see. A few more clumps of the Scadoxus here, just by the base of this baobab. The baobab itself must be 30 or so years old, so it's got a decent stem on it now. Just starting to shoot out its leaves, and it's actually starting to flower and fruit. I was able to harvest the first fruits from it this time around, which was quite nice. And then just down here, we've got little Tulbaghia cameronii that's just starting to peep out. Where this leaf of the Monstera has blown over. But these guys fantastic little early flowering Tulbaghias, lovely white flowers, actually got quite a nice fragrance, and almost like little daffodils. The Amorphophallus mossambicensis are now putting on a good show. Likewise, like with the Scadoxus, they've just literally shot up since that rain that we had the other day. There have been a few of them. This guy here is already past his prime. Because if I kind of scan on the horizon, you can just kind of make out a few more. There's one up there, another one just here. There's one just coming up here. And then, yeah, in the distance, there's a few more. So let's go and have a look at some of the other flowers. So we've got some kind of nice different shapes to them, various different ruffle patterns to the spathe, some darker spadixes, some lighter spadixes. Usually we get about 70 to 80, even 90 flowers on these guys every year. And they'll range kind of blooming over the course of 3 to 4 weeks. But now we're kind of into the midst of the main flowering period on them. They've really shot up since that rain. But always fantastic to have these guys come out, and then followed by their green berries, which will ripen to orange and then provide another kind of nice little color contrast in this area in another month or two. Nice little clump of 3 of them here. These are the leaves of Stylochaeton puberulus, also in the Araceae family. They have those kind of subterranean flowers, or semi-subterranean flowers, which one would hardly ever notice. But you cannot miss these leaves. These are fantastically large leaves, easily probably about 30 centimeters across and maybe 40 to 50 centimeters long. And they just make such a statement in the landscape, especially now where things are still fairly brown, even though you can just notice the grasses are starting to grow with that rain. But these leaves did not waste any time to shoot up, and there's another plant just in behind. But yeah, no, I grow more of these more for the leaves than I actually do for the flowers, because you never see the flowers. Then, not to be outdone, the Gonatopus boivinii have also been shooting up their stems and their flowers. Not open yet, but I'm looking forward to seeing them open. I always love the kind of modeling on the back of the spathe. Lovely one. And at least it usually produces 2, sometimes even 3. And we can just kind of move this, and there's 3 inflorescences on here. 1, 2, and then 3 at the bottom there. So a fantastic plant. And then the leaves themselves, when these guys start to open, are quite lovely as well. So now we've moved into the nursery. And here we've got Tulbaghia alliacea. Little kind of white and greenish flowers with quite a short little corona on that. These are actually a collection I made in Zimbabwe some time ago, and they actually have that kind of garlicky smell to the leaves, whereas any of the Tulbaghias that I've actually collected here in Zambia don't really have that smell of garlic on the leaves. So I'm not quite sure what. But I've moved quite a number of these into the grassland area this year, and they've only just shot up in the last few days with the rains, whereas these I've been watering since the beginning of October. So they're actually up and flowering quite nicely en masse at the moment. And then right next to them, we've got Dipcadi platyphyllum, which floristically is not all that impressive. Fairly greenish flowers, but what I do love about this is the kind of undulating bases to the leaves, and it only ever really produces 1 leaf, maybe 2 in some instances, but these undulations are quite attractive. And then I must admit, one of my favorite plants is the Costus, this being Costus macranthus, I'm pretty sure. Measurements seem to work out for Costus macranthus, which is now starting to unfurl the leaves. They'll lie flat on the ground like this, and then these flowers will just shoot up right from the base in the center of the rosette. So this is the first one opening. You can see the next one is just getting ready to open probably tomorrow, and then there will be several more waiting in the wings. But the combination of the leaves and then the flowers coming right out of the rosette just make this such a lovely plant. We have Gladiolus mellorii here, with these actually lovely, almost like brick red flowers. Now, this is a very early flowering species, separate flower shoots and separate vegetative shoots. The vegetative shoot will shoot up after the flowers finish. This is a lovely kind of reddish color, but then I've actually almost got here a salmon colored one as well. But for whatever reason this year, these flowers are coming out slightly more deformed. For whatever reason, I'm not 100% sure. But lovely kind of color contrast within the species there. And then just in front of it, we've got that Tulbaghia rhodesica, which I did highlight in the October nursery tour, but they are still blooming up a storm at the moment, which is quite lovely. It's very nice and long lasting, putting up multiple inflorescences, which I think with the Tulbaghias is quite common actually of ours here. But then just across the way from it, we've got mountains of the Tulbaghia cameronii, and a nice kind of color contrast with that purple from the rhodesica, and then these with nice kind of white flowers with slight differences. This has a very pale colored corona, and then you can see here we've got actually quite a darker yellowy orange to the corona as well. What I have noticed actually is this has hybridized with some of the leucantha I have on the plot, where the perianth segments, the tepals themselves, are actually sweeping back, giving that kind of almost shooting star type of appearance to the flowers. So I think there's been some hybridization within this population, but giving some nice results, because some of them also then have a little bit more of a pinkish tinge to the flowers, which definitely comes in from the cameronii, which can have pinky purpley tinges to the flowers. And then we have another early flowering Eulophia orchid here. This is Eulophia speciosa, and for whatever reason ants seem to love this. Even when I found this in the bush, ants are always climbing over the flower, so there must be some kind of sugary substance that the flowers are passing for the ants to be so interested in it. But this is an interesting species, because you can actually find this in drier woodlands or actually in permanently wet grasslands as well. Usually sending up the inflorescence well before, just as the rain starts, and then it has these really thick kind of succulent leaves that really start to grow once the inflorescence has faded. But a lovely plant. Again, I am trying to grow this from seed with my efforts, and yeah, some moderate successes on this so far, but hopefully, you know, that'll pick up actually as the weather cools, and it's easier for the seedlings to grow and germinate. So this is another one of my favorites. Here we have Cyanastrum johnstonii in the Techophiliaceae family, same family as Welwitschii. So we have 3 different species of Techophiliaceae in Zambia. There's 2 Welwitschii species, and then this Cyanastrum with these kind of lovely skyish blue flowers. And then the leaves will emerge. You can actually just see the leaf starting to emerge here. But these guys, usually pretty early flowered. They're normally found up in northern Zambia. not coming down into the south end as we are here. This is a collection made by the late Mike Bingham, and I was able to get a few plants from him, and have now been growing them for quite a number of years, and have some of these guys planted also in the nursery. But then in the last 2 years, on my own trips, I've actually come across another form. Initially, actually, I thought this was a different species, but in terms of doing the measurements of the flowers, they match up very well with the description of Johnstonii. But one of the interesting things is that, unlike Johnstonii, where the leaf is upright, this leaf is prostrate and lies flat on the ground. So I don't know if that would warrant variety status, but we'll see. But it's got a slightly darker bluish flower as well, and they're always smaller. These inflorescences never grow very tall. But you can see these guys are just about finished, whereas the other Johnstonii are just starting. And it does look like, actually, yeah, I think looks like there will be some seed from these guys this year, which is quite fantastic. Look forward to growing more and bulking them up. Here we've got the flowers of Jodrellia fistulosa in the Asphodeliaceae family, or Asphodelaceae family, sorry. Now, most people would be more commonly acquainted with Eulophia, the red-hot poker in this family, but this is a kind of a diminutive woodland species. I think it's either a monotypic genus or very few, maybe 2 or 3 species in the genus. But it produces these kind of like white flowers with these yellow, I'm not even sure exactly what those are, the kind of appendages, but nice kind of feathery look to them. Again, these are growing much earlier than what is actually in the landscape here at the farm, just because they've been watered early. But a lovely plant, more deserving of being grown more widespread, I think. This is an interesting little member of the Lamiaceae family. I actually have to, now that it's flowering, put a little effort into trying to figure out what genus and what species it is. But I came across it last year. I was intrigued by the leaves that lie flat on the ground. This was growing on the edge of a perennially wet dambo. And yeah, the flower stalk's quite nice. But just the habit of the plant. I always love things that have leaves that literally spread themselves on the ground. And then these little flower stalks are quite lovely. It is tuberous. It grows from tubers. Let's see if we can get a better shot of the flowers here. Yeah. So it is perennial, and does so nicely, actually. This is the second year it's been in growth for me. The first year it's actually flowered. I was able to identify the family in situ, and then collected 2 or 3 what were juvenile plants at the time, but they've nicely at least matured over last year to now to be able to flower. So I'll try and ID that and actually put up the name on this video if I can do that. I've got the seed pods forming on this Adenia goetzii. Unfortunately, I missed the flowers on this guy this year, but I'll put up a picture to show you what the flowers look like. You know, most of the adenias that we have in Zambia are climbing plants, getting to several meters tall, usually growing from a fairly woody tuberous root, as you can see I've exposed here. But this is a shorter, much shorter species. It doesn't climb. It doesn't produce any tendrils. Produces these kinds of fantastic lanceolate leaves, and then the flowers, and then right next to it I've actually got another low-growing species of Adenia. This is Adenia ovata. And on this one here, you can see how round that leaf is. And again, it's also growing from a tuber, which this one I have left buried in here. But on this plant here, if I lift up the leaves here, You can just make out that, that exposed tuber there. So lovely plant. This one flowered for me as well this year. I'll put pictures up of that. You can just see the remnants of the flower just in the center there. Nothing to cross, so I didn't get any seed on this one. But the Goatseae seems to be self-pollinating if there isn't more than one plant around, it seems. I got seeds on this guy last year, and I think I've just noticed that one has started to germinate in the propagation tunnel. So I'm hoping that I'll be getting more of them because it would be great to grow more of these guys. I've got a number of collection of Letterburia species, though trying to figure out which species is which is not the easiest when it comes to Letterburia. This one is actually a collection I made about a year ago, and I just love these veining, like mottled patterns on the leaves. Such a beautiful, beautiful kind of patterning to that. As usual with most Letterburias, the flowers are really not very much interest, but these leaves at least last the whole season, which gives that interest there. Then here we've got what I'm pretty sure is Letterburia revoluta, which has slightly more interesting flowers, although even at that they are still pretty small and not exactly going to draw one's attention from afar. But again, we've got that kind of interesting modeling pattern to the leaves, and just more. So here we've got actually quite a few different collections that I've made. This is a much smaller leafed variant, and I am contributing some of these to hopefully some work that's going to be trying to figure out what the actual species could be. So I'll be sending pressed specimens, I'll be sending leaf pieces for DNA sampling. This is actually quite a nice one with thinner leaves, but then on the backs they again have that nice kind of striped modeling to them. This is more typical of the many ones that you come across with these just blotched modeling patterns on them. This one being slightly darker, again thinner leaves. This almost looks like a variant of Revoluta, Letterburia revoluta. Again, some more of this striped modeling, and then some with much more kind of thinner, almost grass-like leaves. And then this one here, which I made again last year at the same time as the first one that I showed, which is a very, very small species actually. This one does not grow very big. So that one will be interesting to see, because I'm pretty sure that some of these will most likely turn out to be new species, but we'll just have to wait and see. Here we've got actually one of the open flowers of the Gonatopus boivinii. Again, these have been growing for slightly longer because I've been actually giving them water since the beginning of October. But in contrast to the Amorphophallus, with these kind of white inflorescences, they're very nice. I do appreciate these in the landscape. I've come across a number of Dorstenia benguelensis in my travels around Zambia, but this is probably the most spectacular one that I've ever come across, with the white backing on these receptacles here. This is in the Moraceae family, the fig family. The only herbaceous genus that we have in Zambia. Most of the other, or all the other Moraceae, sorry, are woody plants. But whereas most of the time it's either a green backing or a sometimes even black backing to the flowers, this one just stands out so well with these white backed receptacles here. And yeah, it just kind of jumps out at you when you see it in the woodland. So here are the Scadoxus that have been growing, that I've grown from seed for the last 6 years. So these guys have now really started to come up. It is quite lovely to see this from across the nursery. This giant kind of block of red. You can see that some of them have already been up and set seed. I think this was the first to open. Quite a number of them are now just kind of passing over. So this is not a variant. This is actually just the fact that it's finishing up after having looked like that to fade through to this, which in and of itself is actually quite beautiful, that fading. So with these, I'll actually be selecting types that I want to keep, either for the size of the inflorescence. I'm hoping to get some kind of color spectrum, but they mostly turn out to be this kind of bright red. And traditionally I would grow them from seed in seedling trays for the first year or two, and then transplant them into these raised beds that you just see these ones coming up. And then just as they start to reach flowering size, I will dig them and put them into black plastics that then will make it easier for putting these either into the greater landscape around the farm or to sell in our indigenous nursery. So basically that's it for the plot and nursery tour this month. There have been a few things that have been blooming, that bloomed before I did this video. I've been out and got little videos of them as well, so I'll include that at the end, just to kind of keep you up to date as to everything that's been blooming, especially ones that I wanted to document and share. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please, if you did, like and share, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Cheers. This little gem is Nervillia Adolphii, variety Adolphii. These are single flowered inflorescences. They don't produce any more than just the one per tuber every year, unfortunately. And these guys are very short-lived. You're talking 1 day or so before the flower fades, and that'll be it for the year. They'll be followed by the leaves, which are fairly prostrate right on the ground. You can see the remnants of the leaves from last year's growth here. Green on the top side, purplish underneath. But these are just fantastic little flowers, but too bad they just last such a short time. Another night flowering amarylllid. We have Crinum minimum here. It has these kind of grass-like leaves, as you can see, that then give rise to the single-flowered inflorescence. Quite a long perianth tube on this, with a nice kind of pinkish dorsal keel on the tepals. Very, very nice. Quite a large flower for such a small plant, but it does have quite a nice scent to it. There is another single-flowered Crinum species that occurs in the Flora Zambesiaca area, but not here in Zambia. And that one you can tell apart where the scape, this part just down here, is below ground. But this is the only one that I know of that exists in Zambia, and it's just lovely to have this in the collection. But I don't have many, so unfortunately I've only seemed to have 2 flowers this year. I'll hand pollinate these guys and increase my stock, because it would be fantastic to get more of these around the farm.